Thanks for listening to the Film Florida podcast. If you have a minute, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Thanks, and we appreciate your support. Welcome to the final Film Florida podcast episode for Season 1. My name is John Lux, and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Today, our guest is Carla Berkowitz. Carla is the founder of Perfect Balance World and the executive producer of the film Critical Thinking. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today, Carla.
Hi, how are you, John?
I'm doing good. So we're going to spend most of our time talking about critical thinking, but I wanted to start with Perfect Balance World. Tell us what that is.
Well, I'm a yogi. I've been a yogi for 20 years. I actually owned a yoga studio in Aventura in 2001, very ahead of Aventura's time. And I've been practicing and teaching. And one day I realized that I was slipping out of all my poses, either because I was too sweaty or the pants were too, slippery, or I wasn't doing the pose properly. And that's when I realized that every single pose in yoga is an angle. And every time there's an angle, you have physics involved. And so I launched a brand called Perfect Balance World, which builds the balance into the clothing by the use of rubberized landmarks under the arms and inside of the thighs to help you never slip out of a yoga pose ever again. Basically, it's physics, engineering, and spirituality. And when that came together, those three things, we got the perfect balance.
And when did you launch that?
We launched this 3 years ago, and then rebranded it, and we relaunched, basically. And I wasn't going out there to invent a new line of yoga clothing. That just simply wasn't the case at all. I was just solving a problem, an actual problem. There's a difference between a problem and an actual problem, because the only way that you're going to sell anything is by having a good product. It doesn't matter what else you have or how much money or how much social media support or whatever. You have to have a good product, and you have to solve a problem. And I simply just solved the problem. It was just an obvious problem nobody had ever thought about solving. I did. It became a physics-based yoga brand. And it is, like I said, it's when physics and engineering and spirituality came together. Basically, John, it's like basically having a yoga teacher in your pants. I'm sorry, but that's exactly what it is. It's telling you what to do in every way. So that's Perfect Balance World.
And where can people find more information about it?
You can go on to perfectbalance.com, and the website is there. It is simply remarkable. It has helped. Imagine this. This is an unintended, fantastic consequence. Basically, breast cancer survivors, when they, some of them have their lymph nodes removed under their arms, they no longer can practice yoga. They don't feel anything anymore. So when they started with Perfect Balance World clothing, the rubberized landmark where the balance is, they actually felt it on their knee or on their hand or wherever they couldn't feel before, and therefore started practicing yoga again after all the years. And it became, I have like an Uber following of unbelievable breast cancer survivor yogi warriors who have now been able to practice yoga again through this technology and this concept. So it's a whole bunch of really good karma stuff that came from this.
Well, that's great. I mean, I knew a little bit about it, obviously, from doing the research from, about our interview here, but that's fascinating stuff. And I know a lot of people in our industry actually do yoga. So that's great. But moving on to critical thinking now. For those who don't know the story, let's start from the very beginning. What is the story behind it?
So you want to know the actual story or the backstory?
Tell us the backstory first.
Okay, the backstory. So in 1997, the Miami Herald still had a Sunday magazine called Tropic. And the cover picture was a boy with dreads holding a chess piece. And it was very, very haunting. And I read the article and I said to myself, okay, this is a movie, literally just like that. And the next morning, I contacted the coach who was still teaching at Miami-Jackson Senior High School, because this film is about 11 years of boys who went in as gangsters and left as chess masters. And they only use their minds to get out. And that's what really got me. And I don't know if it's by coincidence or the universe talking to me, but at its 20th anniversary of me seeing the article, we started filming the movie. So it took 20 years to do, and many, many people that were involved in and out, throughout the 20 years. And basically it landed and it was finally greenlit in the hands of the people that were supposed to be part of it the whole time. So it was all meant to be.
And how did you get involved in the process from taking this from a story in 1997 that you read to, today? I mean, that itself obviously is a very long story. So what was that process throughout those 20 years?
So that's a really good question and it's also very emotional for me, because they were in high school when I met them and they had just won the tournament. And when I said to them, just trust me, I will make this movie. I mean, I didn't really think they would trust me for 20 years, but they did. So it's emotional. And I pretty much have a lot of great emotional baggage, throughout this movie with them. They've been put through a lot with different screenwriters and different, director wannabes or whatever, until we finally got so lucky to have John. I didn't really know what to do, to be honest. I was, at the time, I had a company where I developed fitness videos when fitness videos were the thing to do. And I did about 15 of them. So I knew how to do it in the small screen, but I certainly had, no idea how to make a movie. But what I know I needed were funds, and which I got, and talent. And that's what took the time. And also, this film was a low budget. This is an independent, truly independent, lower budget movie, which grew in the can. It became bigger than we thought so even. It was just it's simply remarkable. And someone asked me at the wrap party, they said to me, "Oh, I can't believe you brought this back out, after all this time." I'm like, what? No, I worked on this movie for 20 years on a daily basis. Not like months would go by and then, 20 years later it was an overnight sensation. No, this was worked on every day. This was my job every single day for 20 years. So basically I purchased their life rights and the coach's life rights. And then came the fun part of interviewing, the boys that I chose. I mean, every one of those boys at Miami-Jackson are heroes to me, every one of them. But you can't choose everyone, and I chose ones I thought were cinematography-wise that it would really work on screen, because the stories were so deep.
So 2 decades after you read the story, things come together, and you're able to attract a talent like John Leguizamo to direct and star in the film. How did that happen?
I had hooked up with one of the producers on the film, Scott Rosenfeld, about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, regarding the same movie. And for some reason, we just kind of went our separate ways. I kept working on critical thinking, and he went his separate ways. And one thing led to another, and John wanted to play a teacher. And Scott simply said, "I have a possible project for you." And he remembered, obviously, this project. And we ended up reuniting about a year and a half ago. And he brought John, and John loved the script, and it fit. It just universally just fit. And we were very lucky, very lucky. John's performance is remarkable.
And now John Leguizamo is originally from Colombia, but was raised in Queens. But he's no stranger to Florida, making an appearance all the way back in 1984, I found out, on Miami Vice, and then more recently with 18 episodes of Bloodline as well as a few other things in between. So talk about his presence on the set.
John is a superhero, no joke. I mean, he will stop and sign autographs for anyone. He will speak to anyone. He is incredibly collaborative, and I think he's a curious person, and he likes to learn from other people as well. And he has what I believe to be the sharpest intuition of what is the right thing for him and his projects. I'm shocked on a daily basis as to the epiphanies that come his way. And he's constantly collaborating and asking and inquiring and brainstorming. I'm very lucky.
So as you mentioned, Carla, you've been involved in the production business on a smaller scale throughout your career, but nothing like an independent feature film. Was there ever a moment where you were involved in the process and you took a step back and looked at it and said, what am I doing here?
Yes, every day, all day. And still to this day, every day, all day long. And still to this day, as I watch the cuts, the emotions are so tightly packed and so raw, because you know what can happen in 20 years? I've had 2 husbands since then and 3 presidents, 4 presidents. You know, the world has gone through whatever, and yet we kept our heads down and made this. And I just kept looking around and saying, if you would have told me when I was 9 years old, just coming from Venezuela, not speaking any English and being bullied every single day of my life for 10 years at least, if you would have said to me, stop crying, little girl, because in about 20 years or 25 years, you're going to be making a movie with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and you're going to have a partner who is your biggest champion and is your angel and will be by your side championing all of your projects for the rest of your life, you would not be crying now. And that's what I kept thinking about the whole time.
Carla, I know you felt very strongly about filming this movie in Miami. Can you talk a little bit about that, as well as some of the locations that people will recognize when they see the film?
This is a movie about Miami. It is not a chess movie that could be in any city. This is a chess movie that emanated from Miami, with the genesis being a terrible F-rated school in 1998. One of the worst schools, I would say, in the country. Now is an A school. But I kept the movie in Miami because it's about Miami. The people that live in Miami, the crew, the cast, whatever, they needed to benefit from this. This is a Miami movie. So it may have cost us a little more, but we kept it here. And we filmed everywhere. We had a 20-day shoot, which was very ambitious, and we really milked it everywhere. Hialeah was a big part of it. Hialeah Gardens, Hialeah Racetrack were wonderful with us, letting us park there for days. But we filmed everywhere. Southwest 8th Street, Hollywood, CD Motel. We filmed at the Diplomat as well, inside of their ballroom. We were blessed to have Zach Zamboni, the cinematographer for Anthony Bourdain's shows, Parts Unknown, and all his other shows. This was his first feature, and if anybody loves the way that those shows looked, imagine him being the cinematographer of a chess movie and what he could do with a board. And then we had Danny Santiago as the costume designer, who did The Devil Wears Prada and Sex and the City. And that is the level of talent that, you know, is behind the scenes.
Carla, as an organization, obviously Film Florida's primary focus is on the Floridians that work in the industry. So what can you tell us about the cast and crew hires that were from Florida directly?
The cast and crew, except maybe for some principal people that just don't live in Miami, were all from Miami. And I have to say that my husband and I were extraordinarily emotional, because at the end of the filming, the crew would come up to me and say that we made their Christmas this year, you know, because there's no movies being done here. And we kept it here, and they knew it, and they were appreciative. I mean, people just came up to us like over and over again, thanking us to keeping it here. So Yeah.
So when will people be able to see the film? What's the plan for the release of Critical Thinking?
We plan to release it in 2019. I know it's aggressive and everything, but we are very, very excited, and we are the custodians of a very special film. This film will be watched by students for a very long time. This will be not just awardable and an unbelievable amount of talent. It literally grew, and we are the custodians of a very special film with many different skill sets. We are releasing it in 2019.
Carla, thanks for sharing the story of how critical thinking came to be, and thanks for sharing the story of Miami-Jackson Senior High School with the world. That's it for the final Film Florida podcast episode of Season 1. Thanks to Carla Berkowitz for joining us, and thank you for listening. For more about the film, search Critical Thinking Movie online and look for the trailer coming out this summer. For more information about Film Florida, go to filmflorida.org or visit our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. And we look forward to bringing you Season 2 of the Film Florida podcast in the fall.